The energy crisis in Europe and the question of restoring the Nord Stream gas pipelines have once again placed the Baltic Sea at the center of political and economic attention. On the seabed lie the damaged pipelines that once supplied Europe with Russian gas. 2 years ago, Western Europe openly celebrated Russia's removal from the energy market. Today, the situation has changed dramatically. The European Union is facing a severe energy crisis. Gas storage facilities are barely half full. Industrial enterprises are suffering fuel shortages. Energy prices continue to rise. Under these conditions, voices in Brussels are increasingly calling for renewed dialogue with Moscow on restoring pipeline infrastructure. For the first time, this idea was voiced not in Russia, but in Germany. At an economic forum, a representative of German business openly stated readiness to discuss the restoration of the pipelines. According to him, without Russian gas, German industry is losing its competitiveness. The hall responded with silence. Acknowledging Europe's dependence on Russian energy contradicts today's political rhetoric. Soon after, cautious articles appeared in German and French media. Their message was clear: energy must be separated from political disagreements. In diplomatic language, this means negotiations with Moscow must begin. Meanwhile, the European Commission is urgently collecting data on gas reserves. Underground storage facilities are currently filled to around 50%. Industrial plants are shutting down. Investors are withdrawing capital from European projects. Against this backdrop, a statement from Brussels was met with irony in Russia. European officials said they were considering involving Russian specialists to assess the technical condition of the Nord Stream pipelines. In simple terms, the European Union is asking Russia to restore infrastructure it recently called a tool of energy blackmail. Moscow is in no hurry to respond. The Kremlin remembers the rhetoric of 2 years ago, when European politicians demanded Russia be labeled a terrorist state. When President Vladimir Putin was asked about restoring the pipelines, he responded firmly, "Those who destroyed the infrastructure are now facing the consequences of their own decisions." Russia is not accustomed to fixing other people's mistakes without responsibility from those who caused them. Russian analysts saw a clear signal in these words. For the first time in years, Western Europe is not dictating terms. It is asking for help. This has created deep divisions inside Europe. Poland and the Baltic states strongly criticized Germany, accusing Berlin of preparing to return to dependence on Russian energy. Meanwhile, German industry is in critical condition. Major manufacturing companies have warned the government that competing globally without cheap natural gas is impossible. Behind closed doors, proposals for direct negotiations with Moscow are discussed more frequently. European energy sources confirm that major corporations have already sent private inquiries to Russia. Officially, these concern technical assessments. Unofficially, full-scale pipeline repairs are being discussed. The Kremlin notes one key detail. The initiative is coming from business, not politicians. And business speaks the language of economic reality, not ideology. Putin reminded journalists that Russia previously proposed using the surviving pipeline line, but Europe rejected it. Now European business leaders themselves are asking for restoration. Putin posed a rhetorical question. Should Russia feel sympathy for those who created this crisis themselves? He added a phrase that spread across global media. Russia does not need threats. It needs the sledgehammer of common sense to return rational thinking to European politics. In the West, these words were called an energy ultimatum. In Russia, they were seen as a reminder that economics always defeats ideology. When the explosions occurred in the Baltic Sea in 2022, European leaders reacted with satisfaction, claiming Russia had lost its leverage. Only 2 years later, those same leaders are desperately trying to restore that leverage. Natural gas is not a symbol. It is not propaganda. It is the foundation of heating, electricity, industry, and food security. Europe realized this too late. Behind closed doors, officials admit that without Russian participation, restoring Nord Stream is impossible. Alternative routes are overloaded. LNG is expensive and unstable. Winter will not wait for political pride. Russia is watching calmly. No decisions are rushed. Moscow expects Europe to identify those responsible for the sabotage, provide compensation, and guarantee security for Russian specialists. Only then might restoration be considered, and only on Russian terms. Germany, France, Austria, and the Czech Republic face industrial shutdowns. Without Russian gas, rising prices and social unrest are inevitable. Diplomatic channels between Berlin and Moscow are quietly intensifying. Officially denied, unofficially active. An internal European energy report states clearly, without Russia, restoring Nord Stream is impossible. When frost arrives, arguing with a thermometer is pointless. Russian engineers are calculating restoration costs. The technology exists. The experience exists. But the decision is political. Russia is not obligated to save those who drove themselves into an economic dead end. This is not a threat. It is a new philosophy of energy relations. Europe once tried to dominate Russia. Now Europe is knocking on Russia's door, not with demands, but with a request for help. And now, the keys are in Russian hands. These were the main events of the day. Follow updates on our channel. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe.